All right, we'll see how long this takes to go live today, and then we'll kind of play it by ear and everything. Let me look here. I haven't looked at FanDuel today yet. I think it's our contest today. We still got 9-3. Interesting, not too bad. So we're live on the YouTube. I do see Matthew already asking questions related to taking Byron and Logano. I'm perfectly fine with that. Now, this is a race that has way more variance than normal. Okay, obviously with the option tire, which we'll talk about. But yet again, we'll just kind of go over the you know Phoenix analysis real quick. Yet again, these are in Discord if you feel like I skip over something too fast, or if you want to look at anything in more detail. Especially because we kind of looked over these on Thursday, but we also have a new one to look at really fast. The main thing that we are paying attention to, and yet again, that's going to kind of get a bit messed up today, is the scoring for your highest guys. Now, yet again, we're just looking at the next gen races for this track, so you know we have 6 races here, and then a big asterisk around the championship. Being drastically different than the spring race of who's leading these, what Penske's able to do, et cetera, and then also the incentives of the other drivers and stuff. And so, um, I mean, like it's Phoenix. Also, I mean, this track sucks. Absolutely, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to take a nap during this race. Between like lap 90 and like 270, I'm going to be sleeping. Like I will rewatch this stupid race on Monday. Um, but the main thing that we're concerned about is what we're going to see with your main lap leaders and stuff. And reason being is because since these teams have 2 sets of these option tires, okay? Now, you could argue either best or worst case scenario, depending on how you look at it, is like the example of like Swarz at Richmond, right? And McDowell at Richmond, okay? They are deep in traffic, okay? And they decide to take the option tire to gain track position, okay? Now, why would this be either the best or worst case situation? What's the best if you would have that driver, because they are going to be running substantially faster laps than the rest of the field. Okay. Worst case is you don't have that driver. Okay. It could be literally anybody. We have no way to predict who is going to throw the option tires on first. We don't know when they're going to happen. Now, they're much more viable if you use them off sequence from a racing perspective instead of saving them for the end of the race. If you save them when everybody's on the reds, nobody has reds, right? If everybody's an engineer, nobody's an engineer. Okay. So from a DFS perspective, you would ideally want your drivers to use them early and gain fast laps, and like don't really care about how they finish, just because you want them to be isolated and stuff. Okay. Now we do have, lastly, just with some of the place differential stuff here, we do have some place differential coming through, and you're gonna notice that they are pretty big teams. Okay, they're not exactly terrible people, and I mean this is more so starting mid pack and stuff, but you're not really seeing a ton of like bad teams like start in the back of the field here. Okay, so we could talk about that with where the um with where the starting grid is and stuff. Yet again, and then importantly, where our scoring thresholds, obviously with the amount of laps that we're gonna end up seeing, the amount of laps led and fast laps we're gonna end up seeing. Now, what I would do, or like kind of visualizing how I expect this race to play out, is I would probably have the graph. Now, yet again, this is the last 10 races. I'm just like talking out loud. I would have the graph probably not be as aggressive going up. I would expect us to see your top score and your second score be much lower in this race, and possibly bringing up the middle rankings, and we'll talk about that in a second. But that's where I would probably make an adjustment today with how this race can play out and stuff. We already know, like typically Phoenix is just okay. You guys start wherever, whatever. We go green, and then by like lap like 130, everybody's kind of cycled to where they're going to be, and then you just kind of sit there for the rest of the day, right? Outside of speed on pit lane or whatever. Um, I mean, this is like you know your standard Phoenix stuff. The main thing to talk about is, the impact on the option tire in terms of fantasy points. And the biggest concern or the biggest change that, quickly summing up is that we're going to see a pretty substantial decrease in the point distribution for fast laps than what we normally see. And what that's going to do is typically, and we typically see, the regular tire account for 76% of the laps led between positions 1 and 5, and same thing with fast laps. Like we'll look at that in a second. Um, but like what you have to factor in is that you're gonna see that the top DraftKings scorer scores fewer points with this option tire than in regular races. Okay, you're gonna see that positions 3 through 10, typically score more points. Okay, same thing with the where is the fast laps? And also, we break down the difference between Richmond and stuff. I'm looking for I gotta find it here. Give me a minute here. Yeah, so this is the main thing I wanted to look at here. And so um I think you have to expect that we're gonna have more guys who are probably not great plays from, either track position or hell, even, recent form at Phoenix, possibly getting fast laps or possibly just, probably scoring more points in this. Um, and so on and so forth. And you can look through this on your own thing if you want. That's the main, takeaway from this option tire. Now, granted, I'm not really staying on that too much because yet again, we don't know when people are going to take them, who's going to take them, whatever the case may be. These are your laps. Now, I'm also not putting a ton of stake in the practice data. Now, this is both. I mean, this is just the entire session. So we have both option tires and regular tires and stuff. And so um, I don't really find it because there's no way, NASCAR, regardless of what we're pulling from, outside of having somebody check off who started on stuff, who put stuff on at whatever lap, which we don't have. There's no way to um, separate the option tire from the regular tire practice data. Okay, what we could realistically assume is the faster laps are the option tire, and we're seeing a crossover at around like anywhere from 25 to 35 laps, depending on what driver, depending on circumstances of if they blow their tires off early in the run. But that's typically the crossover that we're seeing here. And so what that means is that, say if let's just say we have a yellow on a hypothetical lap number to where taking tires is the route that people will take leaving that yellow. Okay, anybody who puts that option tire on, now granted, yet again, worst or best case, depending on how you look at it, you would want the least amount of people on the option tire to better, have a better chance of gaining all the fast laps in that one situation. If there's two people, I would actually probably split, the expected fast lap points between those two drivers. You get three, then you got divided between three. And so this race doesn't change a ton if there's a lot of people on the option tire at once. Then you're just, distributing fast laps between those guys. But it's really going to change when you just have one or two people on it, specifically probably early at the race. Yet again, we can't really project that at all. When we're looking at the grid and we're looking at where people are building, and we're looking at line construction in a second. Who are your just probably? I gotta pull this over. Who are the people that we had and we have interest in? I mean, yet again, also like when we're looking at people who have fast laps, like granted, yet again, we're looking at all of them. But if you average everything out, like not surprising, not surprising, not surprising, not surprising, not shocking, not shocking. Herbst, okay, probably option tire carrying things through. Hey, Christopher Bell, Busher, like we're really not seeing anything too out of the ordinary in terms of the average. Um, the average, what is it? I just want to play the average speed. You look at yet again. We kind of went over this quickly in the previous video. I'm going to go ahead and remove Bristol and Martinsville 2 from these equations here, and we look at who were your best scorers in these races. just last year, yet again, a lot of caveats here of, oh, did they start in the back? Did they gain track? Did they gain place differential? Whatever the case may be. This is where your scores were at last year from a DraftKings perspective on a DraftKings scoring metric. Now, I really don't necessarily really enjoy using this data point because it can be swayed, one way or the other, especially when people have like outliers like, Blaney at Iowa, Tricks, which I mean, Tricks isn't even in this field, so we can just kind of delete this guy off the face of the earth. Um, but we see a lot of similar guys showing speed in these races. Okay, Bell, Hamlin, Larson, Blaney, Reddick, Busher. Hey, kind of who are the people who were kind of fast in these races last year? Okay, and then also you have Byron, good in these two races. You have Dylan, who performed well at Gateway and Richmond, and again could be just place differential they got, whatever the case may be. But you then compare that with like, hey, where are these guys in the fast laps, or where are these guys in the practice, and it's really not that different. Uh, let's go ahead and put that back up on the screen here. So when we're looking at the grid, you know, who are our interests in this race to lead laps? Let's just act like this option tire doesn't even exist at this point because it's so important. It really doesn't even matter. Like we just can't predict who's going to use that at any given time. So who are the traditional people we would focus on getting laps led and fast laps in this race straight up? Who do we expect to have somewhat decent cars who can get the lead or be a top 5 contender in this race? Okay. That's Byron, that's Logano, that's Chase Elliott, that's Reddick, that's Hamlin, that's Bell, Blaney, Busher, Kyle Busch, Kyle Larson. Okay. When we look at these drivers here, Kyle Busch was running decently fine last year until he ran into issues. Okay. Larson starting from 17th. Okay. We look at the probably, favorite entering this weekend's race, starting 11th, Christopher Bell. You have William Byron, Logano. Like all these guys are viable to get fast laps and laps led in this race, right? These I would imagine, be your, you know, your main target for, those guys to fill out the role of getting fast laps and laps led. Okay. I have no issue on who you play from here. I have no issue on the combination of drivers you play. I don't give a shit if you play Byron and Logano together. I don't care if you fade the two front runners and focus on Mel, Larson, like whatever the case may be. It doesn't matter. Okay. These are your primary guys who are expected to get, you know, a good portion of the race. Okay. Now we see the option tire impact. Okay. We then bring that in and we see I gotta find it again. Give me a second. I apologize. I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna cry. Oh, okay. That's what I was looking for. When we're looking at position 16 or 6 to 15th, okay, possibly gaining, you know, your, an upside for getting fast laps and laps led, you know, where are the people highlighted in this race, okay, that we could realistically see having a bump in that? That'd be, pretty much from this range here. And so I would personally have more ownership to people from 9th to 17th in in this race compared to a normal Phoenix. Because in normal Phoenix, we would be targeting the top, you know, your top starting positions because like those are the guys most viable to get your laps led and fast laps on any given race. Now that we have, a lot of variables in it, opens the door for a lot more of these people being used. That's why I have them all highlighted here. Like I think you should have, you know, I'm not saying equal distribution in your lineups, but an equal amount of interest in these guys. I think Hamlin should look the exact same as Reddick. I think Bell should look the exact same as Byron. I think a lot of these guys' outcomes are much closer aligned than what they are in a traditional race. Okay. When we then move past that and we start looking at where people are coming in from a value perspective. Now, if we're paying up, if we're expecting that in this race, if you notice, literally everybody we have highlighted here outside of Busher and Kyle Busch are in the 8K range. We have a realistic understanding that we're going to be pretty aggressive, or not aggressive, but we're going to be very heavy on value plays to uh, keep us, in a situation where we can play these guys, right? Okay, so where are those value plays coming from? Okay, now anything can work with host. Like if look, I'll tell you right now, if Hocevar, if McDowell, if Haley, if these guys are working out, if Jones and Barry are able to maintain a position in the top 10, I'm having a pretty bad day. Okay, but the value plays that I would envision were that the field is going to look at is going to be very heavy in the 5K range. Okay, now luckily most of these guys are sitting right beside each other, so their outcomes are very much the same. Okay, we look at Zane Smith and Todd Gilliland in terms of what their speeds are, in terms of what their upside are. We have seen similar results from both these drivers at these races. I don't believe there's really anything separating these guys at all. One's 55, one's 56. Not that big of a difference here. A lot more aggressive with a lot more risk is obviously Stenhouse and Ty Dillon if we're needing the value. I'm kind of leaning more towards Nemechek and just, using the him starting from 36th, combine that with, Zane Smith, Gill, and Nemechek. Like these are the three guys that I'm most likely to be using the most of in the 5K range. Okay. Then obviously, and the reason why I talk about this is we can very easily visualize or at least understand why people carry ownership, where the field is going to be going, regardless of builds. Understanding what values are going to be popular, what people are going to be popular. So what we're seeing is that you know the people expected to lead laps and get fast laps and stuff. That ownership should be pretty spread out. There shouldn't necessarily be like one guy expected to run away with ownership. I would lean that to probably be in Byron, but for the most part, everybody up here should be spread out, okay? Which is good. So we're seeing, okay, so this is a slate we're gonna be pretty chalky in terms of the value here, which is fine. Okay. The value looks good. Okay. Everybody's being forced to use it. Let's not get stupid with value. Let's just play the good value plays and get different up top. Okay. So like that's the takeaway. Secondly, because we're paying up for so many 10 and 8K guys, or 10 and the two 8K guys with Busher and Kyle Busch. Okay. For the most part, we're not being able to, we can't force it, 8, 10K guys or whatever. So we're at the same point, we're probably going to see more ownership being carried in the 8K range with certain people. Okay. Who are those people? There's people who are going to be offering place differential in especially from a projection standpoint, especially mean projections. There's real cases to be made or expect that if you're looking at a uh, projected points distribution from whatever provider you're using, there's a real chance that Briscoe and Gibbs and possibly Chastain might end up being falling anywhere from like fourth to like seventh highest in projected DraftKings points today, mainly due to the fact that they offer place differential, which is much more projectable than the amount of fast laps and laps that you can get up there. And so I think it's reasonable to expect that we see quite a lot of ownership go to Briscoe today and probably go to Chastain. Okay, if we're breaking down a projected, you know, uh here a project. Actually, I'll do it on another tab here. And yet again, this is just me just kind of spitballing and doing stuff in my head here. But when we're looking at who's going to carry ownership, you know, the expected guys to do that would probably be. Let's kind of go through here. And what we're going to do here is kind of group these drivers together here. And I don't need to necessarily nail everything here. It's just trying to figure out where the guys are probably going to be at. Oh, same thing with Bowman starting the back of the field. I forgot. And then we'll just kind of group these guys together, okay? Okay, that's enough for this. So when we look at these groups here, and yet again, like these guys can argue you can kind of fall through the wayside or whatever, right? Like I would not be entirely shocked if these are kind of the groupings of where ownership is coming from or coming at, right? And that's me leaning towards Byron being the highest projected guy starting first, okay? Um, if you look at SaberSim, when you look at their distribution of points, which I can go ahead and bring that up here just because I think that'll be a good baseline of seeing where people are in terms of ownership. Um, you have where are we at here? Did I not? Oh, I didn't do Briscoe. Oops. I'm gonna tab Briscoe to that. So like we see, the expected ownership going to um we have it going to, oh my gosh, dude, am I having a fucking stroke here? We have it going to a lot of the place differential plays here. And my point will be made in a second. Also, I apologize, I'm not looking at chat here right now, but my point will be made here in a moment here. Let's see. So, like, there's a real chance to be made that, like, these are the guys carrying, somewhat ownership in term, and this isn't the actual number. I just kind of wanted to highlight some of the guys in the top ownership here. Throw in Chastain as well. Like, so ownership should be, yet again, this is a very rudimentary way to do it, okay? But we can kind of identify where ownership is going to fall. Not the exact number, but we can have an idea, okay? So who isn't being owned? Who isn't, being used a ton in a race like this, right? I think Bowman would probably fall in line here as well. So if we're building and we're seeing guys in this range, like obviously who isn't being owned, and that's kind of going back to the point made earlier, is I think you should be targeting specifically this range here today. I think with the amount of upside that these teams have, with the amount of unpredictability that this option tire will offer, maybe not as chaotic in real life, but from a DraftKings perspective, those fast laps are going to be incredibly crucial because it's taking them directly away from whatever leader is or whoever the leader is at the time. Because no leader is going to have the lead and then put on the red tires to just gain position for no reason, just blow a set of tires off. So the leader, I would probably argue, is probably closer to getting 1 out of every 7 laps that he leads, probably a fast lap at that, if not less. Okay, so that leans, realistically, race 312, we probably have a total of 280. We might have it up here, green flag laps. I don't remember. Yeah, green flag laps. So we're looking at like 280 to 260 green flag laps. If the leader is not getting those fast laps, that's 312 laps kind of just, or 280 laps kind of just up for grabs between the rest of the field. Okay. So I would implore you to spread out your ownership in this race. And in fact, I mean, I'm doing, 16 lines kind of like I did last week. And now for two different reasons, I want to try different things at Coda. This one is just the variance is so high. I would save a lot of your interest and use that for Vegas next week because there's just going to be a lot of variance today. We know that the place differential guys are going to carry a lot of ownership, but past that, the expected lap leaders are going to be probably anywhere from like 18 to 29% owned and stuff like that. And so we're going to have a lot of guys in the 20s, and this should be a race where there should not be a lot of duplication at all. I would be very shocked to see that play out like that, especially with everything that can happen with this, with the fast laps and stuff. So maybe if you do like that type of variance and stuff, maybe this is a slate that you want to play more of. Um, but I can tell you right now, from 9th to 17th is where I'm going to carry a good portion of my ownership, and I'm probably gonna have 35 to 30% buyer in today. Um, and then have a lot of my stuff spread out between, these guys that I've been talking about for the entirety of this video, for everything we've noted here. So see what you guys are saying here, but I mean that's really my approach. This isn't a race to where, a lot of stuff is clear and day. Obviously, the place differential and identifying, who's gonna be value and stuff like that. But for the most part of where things are gonna fall, there's really no way to project or predict what's gonna happen there, because it's gonna be so goddamn dependent on these stupid red tires. Um, yeah, so well, no, fast laps should be way more spread out throughout the field, Austin, than normal. I just got DM'd on Discord. I don't know if that's related to the show or not, and it's not. Yeah, no, I think that's pretty much my stuff. If you want, obviously, if you want my actual projections of who I'm building with and stuff like that, you can get it through us. Oh, I didn't shovel I didn't shovel the products. I'll wait for some comments to go through on the YouTube stuff, but we do have, you know, soft launch of the new Pay Dirt partnership. So not only are we partnered with SaberSim, partnered with Pay Dirt as well. These, when we officially launch I mean, right now we're like in the soft launch, right? Gonna tell you, like, pretty much at the start of April, everything should be, at the full launch. All of these prices are gonna go up. If you want to be grandfathered in, if you want a discounted annual membership, which I know some people are kind of waiting to see if they wanted that, I would expect these prices to also go up. So if you want that now, now would be the time to join. I will say the NASCAR membership will probably jump to like $35. I think that's probably the early expectation. So like not much, but over the course of 8 months and stuff, that's $40. So yeah, there's that. Going back to Phoenix and everything. Um, I will say the people that I have little interest in are certainly the guys who were slow in practice. Now we can go ahead and take a gander at Ty Gibbs, who, well, I was going to say, actually JGR as a whole kind of underperformed. Now we did have Briscoe run into an issue and pit quite early. Like clearly not happy with the car. He had an issue. That's why we saw him in pit lane early in the practice session. But then he went back out, and I didn't. There's not a difference in times here at all. The Ty Gibbs, runs, especially, yet again, not even regardless of what tire you're on. Like, these aren't speeds that I'm super duper happy about. But then again, you look at where Hamlin was, and he's pretty much identical with Hamlin. Okay. He's pretty identical with, I mean, at least these early runs, right at 130s, to with how long they stay in the 130s and the 120s. We're seeing that they're pretty uh, on track with even what Bell was using. So this is a situation where if we, like Bell entering the race, if we, you know, have interest in Hamlin starting up front, if we see that, hey, a lot of people are probably playing Chase Briscoe, I mean, we're probably playing Gibbs as well. And with the amount of variance that we have with this option tire, I think that actually probably helps the back place differential more, because that's just another avenue for them to gain track position. Now, if they lose it or whatever, or if they use the tire at the wrong point in the race, whatever the case may be, then obviously it changes. But I would say that Bowman, Briscoe, Ty Gibbs, Chastain, they're probably good chalk. Hey, Zane Smith, Gillen, Nemechek, if we're paying up for everybody and we're in the 5K range, head to head. Now, yet again, you might want to take a stance on Herbst, like, I'm much more interested in using Herbst on the intermediates right off the bat. But yet again, this is the first short track. If Herbst is going to be viable and have the speed that other 2311 cars have, mm, probably you want to be early on the bandwagon of Herbst. But the place differential plays of Chastain, Briscoe, Bowman, and Gibbs seem to make a lot of sense. Zane Smith, Gill, and Nemechek seems to make a lot of sense. I just don't think. Now, I would not overload on like 4 of these guys or 3 of these guys, but I think you're probably using 2 of the 5K guys in each lineup. You're probably using 1 or 2 of these guys in each lineup, and then pairing that with whoever you're playing up front. This is just not the range I'd get different at. This is just not like I would not fade Briscoe, or I would not just fade, Zane Smith based on ownership or whatever, because like these guys are like the safer, better plays. This is a race to where you want to absolutely be aggressive on the top half of the field. Let's see. Gonna head to pair with Byron Blaney Bell or Larson. I don't have. I'm gonna use whatever my stuff spits out. In order of these guys, I mean, gun to my head, I would label it Byron, Bell, Blaney, Larson between those 4. If if we're having to rank people and stuff like that. But I mean, I don't know. I think that's mainly the slate. I can't really think of any other aspects to look at yet again. If you want to look at these 2 things in more detail, I mean, especially this one because I just kind of ran through it for the points that I needed in the show. You can find it in Discord. I think this is gonna be a pretty spread out and pretty wild race. The main reason why I'll probably be napping during this race is I think we'll have especially if like first caught if we get a crash before the first stage, or like the people who take the option tires early in the race, while that is that's hurting them in the real life, finished position of this event, that group of drivers is going to fight to be optimal in this race. I think the first people on option tires, the first people to get those fast laps in before we get a huge chunk of people on the red tires, those are going to be the people who are going to fight to be squeezing into the optimal lineup. Okay. So, like, what I'm probably gonna do is wait for that first yellow and stuff and see who did it, and then like, okay, do I have a lot of these guys? Oh, what was that? Austin Cindric? You're telling me Austin Cindric, Michael McDowell, Shane, and Suarez were the guys who took the option tire at the start of during their first opportunity? Well, my day's done. Like that. That's how I'm gonna look at it, right? So hopefully you just kind of fall into whoever has the option tire on first. Um, I mean, oddly enough, I just mentioned Cindric, taking the option tire. I have very little interest in Cindric here, especially at his price tag. If we're building, when you're building lineups and stuff, and we're just going to use, we'll use Zane Smith and Gillen for this example here. Yeah, we'll just do it over here. Fuck it. As you said, I haven't made anything yet. But when we're looking at the okay, so like right here we're working with like 97, right? The driver that you're using, yet again, for this example, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to use 10.5 as that's the middle ground of the 10K guys. We're at this point here of 94. Okay. Yet again, you go one more 10K and then you're stuck kind of in, the value range or the PD range of the 8K guys, the 7K guys and stuff. I'm not getting, excuse me. I'm not landing on Cindric at all today at 7,500. I'm much more interested in people if I'm like stuck, in this range to build. Like obviously I'll be progressing towards Suarez Gregson. If I have more money, I'm gonna avoid, the 7K guys and get more of the guys in the 9K and 8K range, whether it's Reddick, Elliott, Briscoe, Chastain. Like I'm just not builds are not gonna naturally land on Cindric today. So maybe, that's why you want him, especially with, the actual turmoil that the slate's gonna have, like that, you might argue that that probably makes Cindric a better play than normal, at pretty much no ownership, but I just personally won't be there on me. Um, I think that's mainly it. I will, talk to you guys later. Yeah, I don't have anything else to say. If you have any questions or whatever, you can ask me on Discord. But I'm just gonna focus on trying to nail as many of these guys between Reddick and Larson as possible. Obviously, not including AJ, and not including Centric. It'll be these guys that I'm probably gonna try and be over the field on, and just hope one of these idiots wins the race and gets a lot of fast laps. That's my approach today. See you guys later. Best of luck, and bye bye.